Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is another March Mystery Madness video. Before we get into that though, I need to show you the book that I found that fit the prompts from yesterday's video. So those were to find a book that was written or set between 1920 and 1950 and had something to do with food. And so I found A Witness to Murder by Verity Wright. I love this series. It's set in 1920 in England and the main character is Eleanor Swift. And in the first book, she finds out that she has inherited the house and the title from her uncle, and so she comes back to England to take that up. This is a great series. They're very light and funny but good mysteries. In this one, a local politician dies at a dinner party, and it turns out that the fudge that they served for dessert was poisoned. So there's the food aspect for you. Stay tuned to the end of the video when I will do another round of our M&M matchup game. So today is National Telephone Landline Day. Yes, it's true. We are celebrating the landline telephone. I grew up in a landline world. I grew up in a world of stretching the phone cord as far as I could to get some privacy for the calls that I had with my best friend that would go on for as long as I could until Mom told me to get off the line. A world of busy signals and not knowing who was calling and always being aware of the cost of long distance calls. Landline telephones are a great device actually in mysteries. There is the tension involved in whether or not you can have access to a phone when you need to get a hold of somebody or need to call the police. There is the time factor, again, of, do you have enough time to get to a phone, all of that. There's the possibility of being cut off if the phone lines go down. Before caller ID, there was that element of surprise when the phone rang because you did not know who was calling. There's the possibility of misdials, wrong numbers, and then there's party lines. My husband his family was on a party line for a bit when he was growing up. I never was, but I just think there is so much fodder in a party line for a mystery. There is whether or not you have access to a telephone. If you're out and about and you need to make a call, is there a payphone nearby when you need it? And then, do you have change to make that call? Do you have 25 cents? There is the issue of overhearing something on the phone. If you pick up the phone to make a call and somebody else in the house is on the line, you might overhear something. Or if you're a telephone operator, you may overhear interesting information as well. There's the possibility of no answer on the line when it's an emergency, or there's that classic post-accident or emergency needing to use the phone at that strange house. So there's just so much that you can see how it would be great in a mystery to have a landline telephone. So a perfect example I found is the Kinsey Milton series by Sue Grafton. She has set this series specifically in the 80s. And one of the things that means is that her private detective, Kinsey Milton, does not have access to cell phones or the internet. And so she has to use a landline, and so she's out and about and she needs to make a call, she needs to use a payphone. And this book, Wife is for Yesterday, is the last book that she wrote. And there is this great scene at the end of this book where Kinsey discovers the suspect is about to get on a plane to a non-extradition treaty country, and she needs her contact in the police to stop it because she has no authority at the airport to do anything about it. So she runs to find a payphone in the airport, first of all. Second, when she gets there, there is somebody already on the phone, and so she's trying to let the lady know that it's an emergency, she needs to get on the phone. Finally, she has to pay this lady like $25 to get off the phone. And then once she gets there herself, she realizes she doesn't have a quarter. And so she has to go back to that lady and ask for a quarter to use the phone. So, I mean, it really, like, it adds so much tension to the story. Is she going to get the message to the police in time to prevent that suspect from flying away to a non-extradition treaty country? So I just think that is so fantastic. I found an article in the New Yorker called An Elegy for the Landline in Literature. And this was an article that came out on the 27th of July in 2020, and it was written by Sophie Hagney. I'm going to put the link to the whole article in the description box because it was really, really interesting. The tagline was, "Mourning a device that gave fiction surprise, suspense, and uncertainty." And it's totally true. It was a really great article, and I pulled just a few quotes for you from it. "The landline is a source of suspense, of great and small action. It is the noise of the world entering almost supernaturally into a room. In fiction, it is a cherished and endangered device, one full of possibility. It could, after all, be anyone calling." And so, yeah, it's so true. And it is endangered. So unless you're writing books now that are set back in that time period of the landline phone, there's so much that you can't use. Here's another quote. "But there's also something about its fixedness, its set position in space, and its anonymity before caller ID that allows writers to experiment with suspense." And again, totally, totally true. And then finally, "The landline creates certain important restraints that cell phones do not. It allows for fictional worlds in which people can be plausibly held apart, unable to communicate, and then convened in a single burst. It allows for information to be withheld and released. It allows for something unpredictable to enter a room." So I did a bit of a search for books where that device is key in the story, and I found one. This is A Little Gentle Sleuthing by Betty Rowlands. I haven't read this yet. This was published in 1990. And in this book, the main character is a detective story writer who moves to the Cotswolds. She's renovating her cottage, and as she moves in, there is a series of frantic wrong number phone calls that brings a first disturbing note. So I thought, cool, that's really, really interesting. And then I found a book that was written in 1948, and I'm going to put a picture here. This is Murder in the Telephone Exchange by June Wright. It's set in Melbourne, and it has an amateur detective called Maggie Burns. And it was the best-selling mystery of the year in the author's native Australia. So that's cool. The book stars feisty young operator Maggie Burns. When one of her more unpopular colleagues is murdered, her head bashed in with a Batinsky, a piece of equipment used to listen in on phone calls. Awesome, right? Maggie resolves to turn sleuth. Some of her co-workers are acting strangely, and Maggie is convinced that she has a better chance of figuring out who is responsible for the killing than the rather stolid police team assigned to the case, who seem to think she herself might have had something to do with it. But then one of her friends is murdered too, and it looks like Maggie might be next. So I would love to find a copy of that book. I think that sounds fantastic. There is just something perfect about telephone operators and telephone exchanges that would make for a great mystery. So what I would love is to hear some recommendations from you. Do you know of any books where a landline telephone is a device that is used to add suspense? It's a key part of the story. Please put your recommendations in the comments below, because I would love to find more books like this. And before we get to the M&M game, I wanted to tell you this one little story because I thought it was so perfect. When I was in grade 5, I remember our teacher telling us that there would come a day, so I was in grade 5, this would have been 1985, there would come a day when telephone calls would be video calls, where you could see the person that you're talking to on a screen. And I remember everybody in the class was completely baffled by it. And we just couldn't wrap our minds around it. We were used to landlines that were connected to the wall. You had to plug them in. And how on earth would you be able to see the person you're talking to? And then there were so many questions that we had. What if you were in the bathroom? What if you were wearing your pajamas? Why would you want someone else to be able to see you when you were having a phone call? And I just think my grade 5 teacher, man, he was brilliant. And I don't even know if he even realizes the truth of what he says in this world of FaceTime and Zoom calls and all of that. I just think oh man, that was brilliant. All right, so let's do our next round in our M&M manuscript matchup game. All right, here we go. The first color is red. Red is location. And that's brown. So, Europe. We're going to find a book set somewhere in Europe. Orange is detective. Orange is detective. And blue gives us a professional detective. All right, so we need to find a book that is set in Europe with a professional detective. So I would love to know what you find. Put your books in the comment section down below, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.